She thought a child might save them. Instead, it became the weapon that destroyed them both. When Samantha discovered she was pregnant with Nathan's baby, she expected fear, denial, maybe even redemption. What she never expected was his silence, the kind that kills faster than words. In that moment, love turned to ash, and the man she trusted revealed the monster he had always been. But what Nathan didn't know was that betrayal creates something far more dangerous than hatred. It creates purpose. As Samantha begins to unravel the secrets he's buried, her heartbreak transforms into obsession, her innocence into vengeance. By the time he realizes the war he's ignited, it's already too late, because this time, she isn't fighting for love. She's fighting to destroy everything he stands for, even if it means becoming just like him. The room was still lit long after the night had turned silent. The pale light washed over Samantha's face, draining it of warmth, leaving only exhaustion and something deeper, something broken. On the desk lay the test results, the edges crumpled where her trembling hands had pressed too hard. Just a few lines of text, yet enough to rewrite her entire life. She was carrying Nathan's child, the man she had once believed was her final refuge, the last person she could trust after the world had stripped her of everything else. Memories flooded back, the long nights, the tender words, the promises whispered in the dark. Each one now cut through her like shards of glass as she faced the truth. She had thought he would react with surprise, perhaps even fear, but not with the coldness that followed. When she told him, he didn't rage, didn't plead, didn't even flinch. He simply looked at her with eyes as empty as glass, turned away, and walked out of the room. That silence was worse than any scream. In that instant, Samantha understood that Nathan hadn't just rejected her, he had erased her. The love she thought had bound them together was nothing but a convenient illusion, a mask for something hollow and transactional. The child she carried, which she thought would tie their souls together, was instead a threat to everything he wanted to protect. The idea that a man could deny his own blood with such ease filled her with a rage that no words could contain. Every breath she took burned like acid, every thought of him became a curse. How could someone so human once, so intimate, so tender, turn into a stranger made of ice? Was it fear, cowardice, or simply the truth that he had never loved her at all? Nathan had always lived in a world built on control, every decision calculated, every emotion contained. Samantha's pregnancy shattered that equilibrium. She represented vulnerability, the one thing he could not afford. To the world, he was still the charming professional, unshakable and calm. But inside, panic was spreading like a poison. A child meant permanence. A child meant connection. And in his world, connections were liabilities. He convinced himself that denying Samantha was the only way to survive. But denial has its own cost, it corrodes. Each day, guilt began to gnaw at the edges of his carefully constructed image. He didn't repent, instead, he tried to bury it deeper under manipulation and cruelty. Samantha's life, meanwhile, began to unravel piece by piece. Her friends distanced themselves. Her work mysteriously suspended her contract. Her bank accounts froze without explanation. Nathan's influence was everywhere, invisible but suffocating. She realized this wasn't avoidance, it was erasure. Someone was wiping her from existence. Yet as fear gripped her, it slowly began to morph into fury. A person stripped of everything no longer fears consequences. When she looked at herself in the mirror, she saw no victim staring back, only a woman who had nothing left to lose. In the days that followed, Samantha's grief hardened into resolve. She stopped reaching out, stopped begging for explanations, and started observing. The man who once held her heart was now her enemy, and she knew how he thought, how he planned, how he lied, how he silenced those who knew too much. So she began to learn the game he played so well. She found traces of other women before her, names buried under false records, deaths disguised as suicides, disappearances that had been conveniently forgotten. The pattern was too precise to ignore. Nathan wasn't just avoiding responsibility. He was part of something much darker. A network of power and money, one that didn't allow weakness, one that used people like him to keep its machine running. Then she discovered something even more devastating. Her brother Ethan's death, which she had long believed to be a random tragedy, was connected to the same circle Nathan was entangled with. Nathan hadn't killed him, but his silence had enabled those who did. And now, her unborn child had become a weapon in their hands, something they could use to keep Nathan loyal, to ensure his obedience. Samantha realized that she wasn't just fighting for justice anymore, she was fighting to survive. The same people who had taken Ethan would not hesitate to erase her too. Nathan felt the walls closing in. Samantha's silence was more terrifying than her anger. Then came the letters, anonymous, untraceable, containing pieces of information only he should have known. Photos, documents, fragments of conversations that pointed directly at his crimes. She was out there somewhere, watching, waiting. The fear that once belonged to her now consumed him. He tried to strike back, but every move he made seemed to tighten her grip. His allies began to doubt him. His reputation started to crack. The empire he built on lies was crumbling, and the ghost of Samantha's defiance haunted every deal, every phone call, every sleepless night. Samantha no longer wanted to kill him, not yet. Death would be too merciful. She wanted him to feel the slow, methodical destruction she had endured. She began to leak pieces of his secrets, each one a thread that unraveled the life he had fought so hard to maintain. And it worked. Business partners withdrew, the media whispered, the people who once called him a genius now looked at him with suspicion. She watched from a distance as he began to sink, and yet, the satisfaction was tainted by something hollow. The further she went, the more she resembled him, deceptive, manipulative, detached. The pregnancy had changed her. Every heartbeat inside her was a reminder of both her strength and her vulnerability. Some nights she lay awake, hand over her belly, wondering what kind of world she was bringing her child into. Would this child inherit love or vengeance? Would they bear the face of the man she loathed yet couldn't fully stop loving? The questions clawed at her mind, blurring the boundary between vengeance and justice, between right and ruin. Nathan finally broke. His name was disgraced, his assets frozen, his power gone. He was a hollow man wandering through the ruins of his own empire. When Samantha saw him again, by chance or by fate, he was sitting alone on a rain-soaked street corner, head bowed, drenched and trembling. She should have felt triumph. Instead, there was only silence. He was broken, and so was she. The cycle was complete, the destroyer and the destroyed, indistinguishable at last. In the months that followed, Samantha vanished. Rumors spread. Some said she had gone into hiding in a small coastal town, others that she had died in a mysterious accident. No one knew for sure. Nathan disappeared soon after. His name resurfaced occasionally in whispers about political scandals and corporate crimes, always connected to something rotten but never proven. He had become a phantom, just like the love they once shared, something that lingered but could never be redeemed. In the end, their story became a quiet legend, a cautionary tale whispered in the spaces where power and love intersect. It was not love that destroyed them, but cowardice, ambition, and the refusal to take responsibility. Samantha had won, but victory had stripped her bare. She would forever live with the question that haunted her every thought: was she really different from Nathan, or had she simply evolved into the very thing she sought to destroy? And if the child still lived somewhere, breathing in a world built from their sins, what inheritance would they carry? Love, or the curse of two people who mistook vengeance for salvation? The storm had quieted, but the silence that followed was far more terrifying. Samantha stood by the window of the small seaside house, her reflection fractured by raindrops sliding down the glass. The world outside was gray and endless, and for the first time, she couldn't tell whether it was mourning or forgiving her. Months had passed since Nathan's empire collapsed, but his shadow still lingered. In the headlines, in the whispers, in the nightmares that clawed at her every night. She had won, at least by the world's definition of victory, yet the taste of it was bitter. Her revenge had burned too long, and now that the fire was gone, all that remained was smoke, thick, suffocating, and impossible to escape. She looked down at her belly, once the vessel of life and hope, now just a scar of what had been lost. Somewhere, somehow, she still imagined Nathan's eyes in the darkness, watching, waiting, haunting her with the question she couldn't silence: what have you become? There were moments, brief and cruel, when she almost pitied him. In another life, perhaps they could have been something pure, but in this one, they had poisoned each other beyond repair. Every lie he told had become part of her, every cruel act she committed was a reflection of him. The lines between victim and perpetrator had long since dissolved, and all that remained were two ghosts tethered by guilt. Maybe that was the true curse, not death, not loss, but the eternal mirror of each other's sins. As the tide rose outside, Samantha knew she couldn't stay much longer. Too many people still wanted her gone, and too many memories refused to die. She gathered what little she had left, a photo of Ethan, the last ultrasound she had dared to keep, and a sealed envelope addressed to no one. When she stepped outside, the wind was cold enough to steal her breath, but it felt honest, clean, untainted by deceit. Somewhere far away, thunder echoed again, distant, almost gentle. Perhaps it was an ending. Perhaps a beginning. No one would ever know what became of her after that night. Some would say she fled across the ocean, others that she disappeared by choice. But if anyone had looked closely at the sand the next morning, they might have noticed two sets of footprints leading toward the water, one belonging to Samantha, the other smaller, uncertain, as if a child had walked beside her. And then, just before the tide erased them, the trail stopped. Whether it meant freedom or finality, no one could tell. Only the sea knew the truth, and it was in no hurry to give it back.